Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jesse Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody. My name is Jesse Ott. Welcome to Thursdays. I have Kaileen Powers here, National Marketing and Account Executive and Account Executive at Walker Clay Company. How are you today, Kaileen?
Hey, Jesse, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing super. It looks like you're, in this really amazing space back there. It's all white and bright, and it's pretty cool.
It is, yeah. We do have a room that's for recording. We just updated our offices, so we have all these new lights. So we're kind of like halfway done. So there was a lot of behind the scenes light trickery happening before this call, but hopefully we got it okay.
Yeah, that is the thing with podcasts. It is better to have light. I had so much trouble one day. I was trying to interview my oncologist and none of my lights worked. It took 20 minutes to get my second computer working that day. I mean, it was just such a nightmare. And then it turned out to be like the lighting wasn't so good. I was so disappointed. So I get the lighting thing. It is definitely important. Well, it looks good. Good job.
Thank you very much. It's such an art, so I'm glad you feel my
Nice.
pain.
Yes, it is an art. So where are you calling from?
I am calling from South Shore, Massachusetts. So those who don't know, we are between Boston. It's like the end of Boston, and then it's the coastline to the Cape along
Okay.
eastern Massachusetts. Yeah. Not to be confused with the South Coast, which is on
I
the
was going to
other
say
side.
South Boston.
No, there's South Boston, there's South Shore, and then there's South Coast. So there's a lot of South things happening in Massachusetts.
Okay. What are those? The Wahlbergs? Aren't they from the South? The
They're from
South?
Southie. Yeah, they're from South Boston. Yeah. The Wahlbergs, and they have the Wahlburgers, that cheeseburger company.
Yeah. Have
Great
you eaten that
brands.
one?
Sorry?
Have you eaten that one?
I have, yeah. I think the original one is the one that's in Hingham, Massachusetts, and I've definitely eaten at that. It's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Let's just say I was disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've had better for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Have
I
you ever
was very
been up this
disappointed.
way?
Where?
Have you ever been up to Massachusetts?
Yes, I've been up there a couple of times. Did the Freedom Trail. I have yet to get to the Italian part of town, which is kind of a bummer. But yeah, I've been up there. It's beautiful. I love Boston very much.
Boston is beautiful, and you would love the North End.
Yeah, we just didn't have time. We went to go see a friend who has a house on the Cape in Wellfleet, and so we took the boat from Boston into Provincetown, saw a whale. It was really cool, and then spent a little bit of time in Provincetown a couple of times that week, and it's a lovely part of our country
Yes, it
for
is.
sure.
Provincetown is definitely the jewel of the Cape. It is the cream of the crop. It's so fun down there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I got some amazing pictures. Yeah, it was wonderful. And when we went to the Keys, there's artists there and they're not most of them aren't from there, but they land there on their worldwide tour looking for the right place that fits them to create, right? Their paintings. And I could see where that place could be another spot like that.
Yeah, the ocean is just so inspiring because there are
Yeah.
so many colors that happen there. Grays, blues, greens, you really name it. And all the wildlife too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, even in Florida, we have a lot of different birds in our neighborhood walking around, stopping traffic.
Yeah, I
Pretty
bet. Where
funny.
in Florida are you at?
We are in Lake Mary, which is just north of Orlando.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we're not, I mean, it's an hour flight to the Key West, so it was pretty easy to hop down there. Not expensive using, miles. A low cost carrier Allegiant, and then using not miles but points at the hotel. So it was fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Now,
Yeah.
do you have to take one of those really small planes though?
No, it wasn't small.
Nice. Okay. That's
No.
been my fear of going to Key West. I always heard you have to take a small one.
Well, it depends. I mean, from here, it was 3 seats on each side.
Nice. That's not bad. That's a
So yeah,
regular
that's
plane.
not.
I'll get on that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it wasn't bad. It wasn't one of those tiny 4-seaters or 6-seaters or anything. I mean, we take the little express when I go from Dallas to Cedar Rapids, where you're like two people.
Okay, yeah.
Those are small. The
Yeah.
MD-80s or something like that. I don't like those.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
When the pilot just turns around and says, "Okay, put your seatbelts on," and you're like,
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So, are you originally from South? What'd you say again? South
South
Boston?
Shore, yeah, South Shore,
South
Mass.
Shore. South Shore. Yes.
Yes, I am from South Shore, Mass. Originally, I've mostly always been here or in the greater Boston area. I did live out in Chicago for a while, and I loved that city so much. But I really thought, as a New Englander, I could hang with the winter. I could not. It was so cold in Chicago. I couldn't handle it after a few winters. I had to come home.
I wear long sleeve shirts when we go there in the summer in July
Yeah,
in Chicago.
especially with the wind right on the lake, it can get cold all the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's brutal. Yeah, 100%. But that does surprise me as someone from the Northeast. I mean, Boston, I mean, but you're kind of coastal a little bit where you're at, right? So it's a
Yes.
little bit milder than, inland and then on a lake that's north of the city where it hits it's just got all the things that really make it cold in
Yeah, yeah,
Chicago.
absolutely. It's just a different kind of cold. I don't know what it is, but it was just really something out there. I think it is like that ocean keeps it kind of warm when you're on the water but the lake is just an ice cube all the time, no matter what.
It's in the summertime, it's cold.
Yeah, it's not for swimming. I did not swim out there. And I lived right on the
Yeah.
lake.
We stay at a hotel right on the lake, and it's just so funny to see these people, doing their laps in the lake, and I'm like, "Nope, nope, not gonna do it." I've been on a boat out there, and we jump in, but then you just like get right out. It's
Yeah.
pretty cold.
It's like when you do those ice baths after a workout. That's what
Yeah,
it's good for.
exactly.
Dip
It
in,
keeps
run
that.
right out.
Yeah, keeps your muscles loose, and what is that liquid? Lactic acid keeps the lactic acid from. Yeah, yeah. That is a good point. That is a positive.
Yeah. But outside of that, I
So
mean,
what
that city is gorgeous.
the city is? There's just everything about it that's great. What brought you out there?
Actually, for one of my jobs. My career, I was reflecting on it before we had this chat, and it's so funny because I started in not only the industry I'm in now, but also with the company I'm with now, Walker Clay. But I left for quite a long time, and a big part of my career was in retail, accessories, and apparel. So I moved out there for a job with a company called Bradford Exchange. Have you ever heard of it? It's if you've
I
ever
feel
opened
like
like
I
a
have.
National Enquirer, you've seen one of their ads
Okay.
for like a porcelain doll or a necklace that you could buy for your grandmother or something.
Okay.
It was a very, very fun company, and I worked for their jewelry department. So I did product development and design for them, mostly with sports licenses. So I would have to figure out how to make a beautiful beaded necklace for all the NFL teams or something because we had their license.
Well, how fun is that?
It
That
was
is really cool.
it
Well,
was
let's
a
go
blast.
back a second.
Sorry.
So you went to college for art and design.
Yes, yeah. So I went to Boston. I went to Mass Art, Massachusetts College of Art and Design. My dual major there was painting and art history, which
Wow.
it sounds like how'd you get there from here, but it all kind of fits when you look at it from an eagle view, you know? Uh, the one thing that's always been super, super interesting to me is visual language as a concept. And really all visual language is how do you use very little words or no words and lean on w- visuals, icons, color to tell a story. So you do
Okay.
that in art when you paint. You can do that in any medium. Obviously, you do that in branding and marketing. So that's where I really got to understand how to do all that stuff, and it was a absolute blast. Also, it's amazing to
I
just
bet.
paint all day.
Yeah. I mean, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how old you are, but we grew up with what's his name? The painting guy.
Backgrounds?
Bob Ross, the painting guy. Yeah.
I love
Let's
him.
just make
For
some
happy
trees. Let's make some
trees.
trees. Happy trees over here. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a transformable experience just watching him with a blank canvas and what he can do with it in no time.
Yeah. And it's amazing because anyone could sit and watch that show, and that's the thing that's cool about visual language. You might not be a native English speaker, but you can just watch him paint and there's a story there, right? So that's what's so cool about art and design, is
Yeah.
you could put it on mute and still enjoy that show.
Yes. Yes, I understand what you're saying. That's really cool. Okay, so after you graduated, then what happened?
Yeah, so after I graduated, my first job out of college was as a promotional products distributor, working in national accounts here at Walker Clay,
At
actually.
Walker Clay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's so funny. All those cliches are so true. That's what I've learned with my career. Sometimes it's the right fit, wrong time. And also, if it's meant to be, it will be because everything circles right back around to where I'm at. But I definitely wasn't ready at the time. It was really tough going into an office job from a painting studio as a young adult. And B, a lot has changed in the last 15 years with myself, but also a lot has changed in the promotional industry. Things have really opened up as far as custom work. You can do your own merch, any of that stuff, the product offerings, the colors. So at the time, it just wasn't for me. It was too specific type of products that I didn't really love or engage with. And I also hadn't figured out yet who I wanted to speak to and work with. So after that is when I moved out to Chicago and started that job in jewelry design for a few years.
Which is an incredible experience.
Yeah, yeah, it's everything builds on itself, right? Because
Yep.
after that point, I loved jewelry and I loved Chicago, but we always get to those points in our lives where we're like, this feels like the ceiling here. I was
Yep.
like, it's too
You've
cold.
maxed out.
And I was also just feeling like I love jewelry and I love all the things we're doing. Because the thing that was cool is I did sports licenses, but because it was this company that had all these fun, wild licenses, I also had to do Elvis jewelry because we had their style guide
That's
license.
cool.
Disney, all that fun stuff. Oh yeah, my
Oh,
favorite Elvis,
wow.
my favorite Elvis thing I ever made was this little necklace, and I knew that his hips were like the big signature move, so I made this like pendant that his legs shook. That was definitely a highlight of my career.
That does sound like a highlight. That sounds like fun.
But it did get to this point where I loved making jewelry or designing and sourcing jewelry and developing it with a team. But then I was like, what? I want to learn what else I can do. I was interested in more than just that kind of product. And then I ended up moving more into the apparel industry and I moved back home and moved around in different departments. So I did like accessories and I got to see it all. So hosiery, home goods, tote bags, footwear, and then I went specifically into just apparel design, which is really cool because once you do all those different kind of products and you're working with vendors overseas, you're like, I can figure out how to manage the production of any hard good or soft good.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So
So
you design bags or you source bags or
yeah, so when I moved back home, I started at a retailer called J. Jill, and I was in their accessories department. So I helped with everything. So we did have a bag line, we had jewelry, and like I said, we had like hosiery, meaning leggings, tights, socks, hats. And then I ended up really working there in their footwear department before I moved over to apparel.
okay. So
And
you
it was
have
very interesting, but sourcing was tougher
yeah.
for me. I'm not a numbers girl?
It's all the accessories.
Yes.
Jewelry, hats, bags, shoes. That sounds fun. So
Yeah.
what made you decide to change?
So my story is very similar to I feel like a lot of people in the last 5 years. COVID happened. I was at a new fashion retailer. I was working in their apparel line, and a couple things came to a head at once. Our company, the company that I was working for at that time, made the unfortunate decision. Things were really tough. They took a huge hit being retail and they went through layoffs before closing doors. They pretty much did it within a 3-month period. So I was a part of the layoffs, which it's so tough at the time, but I feel like everyone learns so much in their career when they get laid off, if that makes sense. It's almost always a
Mhm.
blessing. And
Almost like, yeah, because when one door closes, another one opens.
right. And sometimes I really am a big person of like, sometimes your life is speaking to you,
Yep.
like
The universe is
what
helping you follow your path.
right. Yeah. So that happened and it was a shock, but it was also, COVID was happening at the same time. So that was wild. And I just being in that industry, like I had a lot of question marks in my life. Being in that industry was really fun, but it is a grind. It's really hard to advance in retail financially and position wise. And it's a lot of hard hours. And I never
Yep.
quite felt like my personality type fit in with the industry per se. Like I had great industry friends, always loved my coworkers, but it never felt like home, if that makes
Home
sense.
just for now.
Exactly. But it felt I was determined to do something like that, especially in my younger years, because I wanted to prove myself as a creative. Like I really needed my job title to reflect that like I had done something creative. It was a little ego driven.
But that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, for sure.
motivation.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, so
Yeah.
anyways, sorry, long story short, all of that happened and I was just kind of like, I don't know. I started to apply to new jobs in the retail space and then I was like, I don't think I want to do this
Yeah.
anymore. You know what I mean? So instead of going that path, I decided to take a little time to just kind of collect myself and figure it out. So I actually started restoring furniture. And
Fun.
it was really fun. I had no idea what I was doing, but
That's very different than accessories.
yeah, I just needed to it was sort of like the jewelry thing, right? Like, I was like, "Okay, I'm at this time where I have to just try something new. I gotta figure something new out." So I started doing that and I started freelance marketing because I always had that graphic design background, and I'm really strong in branding even I never worked on a branding project in the apparel side, except for when I was in a denim program, I had to design, like rebrand their denim line to, what does the hang tag look like? What hanger is it on? How does it look in the store so that it could more align with the brand identity overall? So more like a merchandising plan. But I was really interested in that. So I thought, why don't I just kind of try Upwork and Fiverr and pick up freelance work and see if there's another industry that kind of pops up that I really
Right.
like.
Yeah.
And just the winding road kind of brought me right back where I am here. I started doing some marketing and branding work in helping promo teams. And then there was a space for me back here in Walker Clay. And that's when I started getting really interested in aligning specifically with the beverage and CPG brands to make that my level of focus in the promo field.
Okay, that's really cool. Can you walk me through an example of how, like, let's say there's a new beverage company that's going, okay, Kaileen, like, let's come up with a plan kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really depends. So the funny thing about my view of the beverage industry is I work with a lot of regional brands that are small, regionally distributing and growing. I work with a lot of emerging brands that are starting to break out into those national markets, but I do also work with national, household name brands too in beverage. And I think that's a really cool view because a lot of my counterparts, my clients that I work with, they get that experience, but they see it for, they're with a certain type of brand for several years, but I'm seeing all those different insights within any given day. So it definitely depends on the kind of brand that's coming to me, right? Because a name brand, national brand, they are coming to me and they're telling me, usually it's more like an RFP or for a proposal and they know exactly what they want based on what they've done in the past. And they'll say, budget, quantity, and find something like this. And then you're being creative, but it's definitely directed by them. But in some of my smaller brands, it is something like they really don't necessarily have a marketing team or a procurement team where that person is on. And that's when I'm really helping a lot more. And I'm like, okay, where are we looking into? What markets? What are we trying to do with this display or promo piece?
What's the story
Exactly, yeah, it's
that
the
you're trying to
story.
tell?
Yeah, and, and then it's just a matter of sourcing items for them and kind of coming up with case studies if they need that guidance of, "This is how I would do this, and maybe this is how you can distribute it." So, it's all in whoever's asking.
So, how did you fall into the beverage CPG space? Was that just the opening at the time, and then it just clicked with you, kind of thing, or
Yeah, it kind of happened organically. I had a few contacts that I knew, and so they were just some of the first people I started reaching out to and exploring. And I also was trying to think strategically, like, I want to align with an industry that thinks in a similar way that I do. So beverage and CPG really was a no-brainer for me because I have that retail brain. So I'm much better at thinking, okay, what are your marketing activations for next year? And let's plan for 2026.
right?
I've worked my whole career next year in planning.
Yep.
So um, I'm definitely able to help you with something quick, but it works more for me because then we can really delve into the creative space. Also, because we're working in that next year mentality and building year outs for marketing activations, that really gives you the space to tap into those super custom resources. And let's not buy a tote and throw your logo on it. Let's make one that's shaped like your can. Let's
Yeah.
just do something
Do
cool.
something creative and different, because
Let's make some
you know
slippers up.
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people. There's room for a lot, but we're getting to the point where it's getting pretty saturated, and it's kind of survival of the fittest, and it's starting to fade out. I think a lot of companies are struggling and running out of money.
Mhm.
You see a lot of times too, people, and you've probably seen this in your experience, where people are focusing on the wrong things, or they don't know the route to market, and they're spending all this money and they haven't even sold a single case. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's just kind of a bummer, because there's really good people in this industry, and there's just dogs that take advantage of these people that are just trying to, take all their life savings and their heart and soul and try to create something, and it's not easy and it's costly. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say it's what I think is really important before anyone even comes to the stage of we're gonna spend money on marketing spends is that's where branding is so important. And that's what I'm super, super passionate about. And what I'm doing right now with the beverage space, I'm working with you usually after you've done your branding work. But it is interesting because that part is so important. And there's a saying I love. You've probably seen it on LinkedIn or something. Marketing is asking someone on a date, and branding is the reason why they say yes. Have you ever heard that?
No, I haven't. I like it.
I love that so much because it answers a couple questions, right? Like the primary thing it definitely tells you, because I think it's so true, is if you're wondering like chicken or the egg, which is important, what comes first, it's branding, right? Like if it's the reason
Yeah.
why you say yes, maybe it's the outfit you're wearing or the cologne you've got on, or, you've been working out for 3 months. I don't know what the answer is, but if it's something that speaks for you before you have spoken, and that's why they're saying yes, then that's all the behind the scenes work you do first, right?
Yep.
With branding, I'm a visual language person, but it's about story more than visuals. And I think that's one cautionary tale I'd say for especially Bev. People get really into the visuals, and it's really it's really easy to get like, ooh, shiny, pretty things, but the visuals are supposed to say something. So it's actually the
Yes.
story that's more important, right? You know, I always joke too, if you cannot answer the question, who are you in a sentence as a brand, and it's got to be more than we make beer. right? Like it's got to be in a true sense about like who your true DNA is. What are you really all about? If you can't answer that yet, put down the Pantone books, right? Walk away from the logo because you that comes first.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Have you ever had someone come to you even like before they have a brand and just be like, "Hey, what are you seeing out there?" Like, I mean, I would think that it wouldn't happen, but just in case, is has anything ever like that came to you where you're like, "Let's build a brand together and help us kind of navigate that?"
So not in my day-to-day, because by the time they're coming to me for promotional products, displays, or to build their retail store, they have capital. And if they have capital, they have some sort of visual story, right? But in my personal, like non-day-to-day, I do freelance work and I'm really passionate actually about helping small businesses. So that's
Yeah.
something that does come up for me. And it is really cool because you are really building someone's story with them. Most recently, it wasn't in Beverage, but I had a small museum on Cape Cod, Massachusetts actually come to me and there was this really big trend in like the 2000s with like the Met when the Met like was just letters, right? And so a lot of museums wanted to do that. We're identifiable with our letters that make up our museum, but if you're not the Met, you have to tell a
Right.
story with your logo. So the cool story about this museum is it's two historic buildings and a restored.
Cool.
Yeah, so before it was just the letters that made up their museum, and then I created simplified, stylized line drawings of the tops of the houses because they had like specific weather vanes, which are really important to the Cape Cod community too. And we used their colors from before because that definitely still was a very strong story. It was like greens and blues, so it felt very Cape Cod. And we just cleaned it up, put the words back in. And then we built out like their whole story from there, and they've built a capital campaign from it. So it was really fun because it really helped
Oh
them kind of
yeah.
propel into a new space.
Yeah. And told the story and got the history and all the things. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. And it's cool because I feel like the logo now answers the question, who are you? We're a campus of three really cool buildings. Come check us out, right? And that logo says everything without having words to it. Before it was just letters and you didn't really know what they meant.
Right. Kind of like my company name, Innovate CRS. Nobody knows what that means.
Well, sometimes naming is tough though, because sometimes you want to keep it broad, right? You might pivot and you're like, well, I don't want to spend the money on another LLC. So sometimes it's smart to keep it a little open.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. That's true. And it's the work of redoing all of it is not fun.
It's a bear.
Yeah. So there's that too. But you got to get it right, you know. It's important. Branding is so important for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it's so important and it's definitely like I said, it's way more than a logo or style guide. It really is who are you? That's the question it answers.
So at Walker Clay, do you guys support like all kinds of different industries then with what you do?
Yeah, yeah. So we are a promotional products distributor, and the promotional products industry is very interesting. So we have access to hundreds of thousands of products all over the world. Anything with your logo on it or anything with any kind of graphics you want on it. And we belong to a larger network of suppliers that we report to. So when in the promo industry, there's two groups. There's the suppliers that make everything, that print everything, and then there's the distributors. The suppliers are usually pretty specific. So there will be a supplier that they are an expert in imprinting pens and sourcing pens. There's decorators for wholesale goods like garments and hats. And just to kind of put it in perspective, we have a huge show every January in Vegas, and it's the big promotional products industry show. And that has over 200,000 products on the floor.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Uh, the long story short of that is when you're a promotional products distributor like Walker Clay is, really, in my opinion, the only way you can be really successful is when you align with a vertical market that you become an expert in. So for me, that's been beverage and CPG because I can't be an expert in 200,000 different products, but I'm an expert in custom, I'm an expert in displays, and I'm an expert in like building out retail merch. So then basically I can just move quickly to access those products and I'm more familiar with those.
Yeah.
But there are representatives here that focus on healthcare. We had a vendor meeting the other day, and one of our reps that focuses on healthcare was like, "Oh, it's too bad this zipper is in plastic. I can't sell it to hospitals because of MRIs." And I'm like, "I never have to worry about that when I'm sourcing apparel, you know?" So yeah, we're allowed to kind of pick who we align with, and then each rep really does become an expert. We go to more shows in the industry that we're aligned in than
Yeah.
our own industry shows because that's more important, right?
Those relationships. Yeah.
Those relationships, but also sometimes I go to certain Bev shows and I'm not there trying to prospect at all. I'm going to the education seminars and I want to
Yep.
know what are
What are
the
the
pain
pain points
points.
out there? Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's cool
Yeah.
because you kind of like choose your own career, really.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty awesome career you've had, Kaileen. That's awesome. You seem very, very happy and excited and motivated with what you're doing. You love your customers and love helping, people build out their branding and telling their stories. So you look really happy.
I am happy. I'm a happy person anyways, but yeah, no, it's the move back was the right time, right place. It's definitely like it's funny, it all comes together. The
Together.
painting, the
Yep.
jewelry, all those random things.
And that's what's been fun about my time here with the podcast is talking to people that have those exact same journeys, that one thing kind of led to the next, that led to the next, to the I mean it's that's why I love it, because it's fun to understand, because everybody has their own journey and everybody has their own place in the industry. What
Absolutely.
is it and what does that look like? And that's what's fun for me.
Yeah. And I'm proud to be a insider outsider of the beverage industry.
Yeah, you're like right on the cusp. You don't own a brand, but you help them build.
Yeah. I feel like yeah, it's like and when you are doing what I do because it's like a lot of different things, you really start to build, relationships with your primary clients. And I
Yeah.
feel like I'm a part of their marketing and procurement teams,
Yeah,
which is
that's
fun.
good. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, it's totally depends. The place that I connect with most people, especially industry people, is LinkedIn. It's such an amazing tool. People find me there. I find people there. That's definitely been the way that I connect with industry professionals the most.
Um, is there anything else that we haven't said about your career before we move on to other questions?
No, I think that's a pretty good summation of my career. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Congratulations. It's
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool that you're an artist and art history. Do you ever find yourself just like, oh, I need to go to a museum just to get my art history? Like, what do you call it? When something pops into your head and you're like, yeah, I missed this part of my who I am or who I was. I need to go just jump into a museum or something.
Yes, yeah, I'm a huge museum person, love popping into different museums. And one thing that's nice about the transition and working more in promo and bev space over what I was doing in retail is when you are working so hard, sometimes it's really hard to also have that work-life balance to
Yes.
do your own creative work. So I will say, I'm starting to paint again, which is really nice.
Good.
And yeah, so I'm definitely connecting with that part of me too.
Good. What kind of painter are you? Watercolor, oils, landscape, people?
It used to be portrait for a long time.
Well, that's hard.
Yeah, but I love
People
it.
are
I don't know.
hard.
And I like things to move quickly. So I am more of an acrylic painter. Oil painting was always too frustrating for me. It makes you slow down and I want to like let the layers dry and move on. But I've been trying to get more into other mediums. So I've been like doing watercolors recently, which is tough. I get
Nice.
muddy pretty fast.
Yeah. I won an art show in the 8th grade.
That's cool. What did you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, my brother's best friend was so pissed. I beat him. He was a senior in high school or something. I did the Japanese footbridge. I've been obsessed with Monet and Manet for years. Lived in France, never went to check out the place, but I spent I spent a really long time painting it, and it won. Yay!
Yay,
High
that's
school
awesome.
of 80 people.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people, but small town.
Well,
But
congrats.
but
That's amazing.
but I get you. Water painting is hard. I don't know anything else. I didn't do any oil painting, so that I did. That sounds like more of a reflection. You do a little section, you gotta let it dry, reflect, kind
Yeah.
of like your next layer. Whereas you don't have to do that so much with watercolor. I don't think. I don't know. I took time. It took me many, many, many days and evenings.
Yeah, I kind especially with watercolor, because that's another one that you do have to kind of slow down. That's why I like, in my day job, I love helping when people need help, like kind of like creating a design or something. I love doing that sort of thing too, because you can do all those creative things, but it is so much more forgiving, Control Z if you made a mistake and it just goes away.
Exactly. Except for when you send that email without finishing it. It's like,
God,
what
it's so
button did
embarrassing.
I just hit to do that? I don't know.
They figured out how to allow you to press undo, but they literally give you 2 seconds. It's like, "Can you
Yeah, I
give
don't even
me
know how to
more?"
do it.
Sometimes, like, in Gmail, it's, like, right at the bottom left, it'll be, like, undo, but as soon as you go to click it, it goes away. It's like, "Okay, I
It goes
guess
away. It's
not."
like,
Yeah. So disappointing.
awesome. Well, should we switch over to mentors?
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to chat about
Yeah.
some mentors.
Okay, great. Do you have any that you want to mention?
Yeah, so I would definitely love to mention the 2 owners of Walker Clay. It is a certified women-owned company, so they're sisters. It's Heather O'Neill and Amanda Clay.
Oh,
They have obviously been here a long time, so they were my mentors when I first started out my career, and they've been incredible leaders with me kind of coming back on board. So it's just really nice to have people that, trust the process too. I kind of came on board and I was like, it's going to take me a while, but I feel really strongly about this path. Like, let me do it, and
yeah.
they were a good kind of mentor because they just let me run, and I had a great opening year because I did have that space to just kind of figure it out
Figure
and
it out.
yeah.
Nice. Nice.
So,
It sounds like it's a big trust factor that you had built with them. And
yeah,
if you're building a book of business, it takes time, and you got to get out to events. So there's an investment there. I completely understand that, especially with all that I'm doing these days. But yeah, that's great. I mean, when you came on board, did you know exactly like this is what you wanted, or did you kind of figure that out that first year?
it was a little bit of both because I was doing some freelance work where I was contracting for other promo industry people, and I got a
Like as a
glimpse.
designer?
Yes, yeah, and a little bit of sales too, and I got a glimpse into different industries and the couple of projects I got to work on in beverage, that's when I was like, "Okay, there's something here," like, for the point of sale displays, it was an automatic alignment for me because of all the projects I had worked on for preparing merchandising for,
Yep, jewelry
hundreds of
and
stores.
handbags. Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's
it's
cool.
it's very much, it's still retail, so a lot of that mentality is the same, and I was just like, "Yeah, I feel like I can be really helpful and different, and I'm not meeting a lot of people that have the exact same
Yeah,
set of skills as me, so I definitely wanna try
especially as
this,"
an artist. I mean, you can get really creative that way on your own, you know? Just
Yeah.
probably by sketching stuff out. If you can draw people, then you can sketch.
Yeah, it is funny if I'm like this and like a call or meeting with the client, it's always fun to have that immediate skill.
Yeah,
But then you
that's
gotta,
really
like,
cool.
have the business side too and be like, "Okay, that would be really expensive to do an end cap that looks like that, so maybe not."
Yeah, my brother growing up, he would draw GI Joe guys, or like his like the whatever guys growing up were. I don't even remember them all anymore, but like it was amazing work that he could just He could draw that like the people and the all the joints and the hands and the faces, and it was incredible. You could put them in motion. I mean, that's a skill. That's a skill. I guess you're either you must. I mean, you learn it, but it's also he didn't have any formal training, so I think it's also just a skill you have.
Yeah. It's I've done a lot of like art education too, like it's just more like a hobby, like paint nights and stuff. And anyone can be guided through like making a piece of art. I
Yeah,
think, skill is definitely a part of it, but it's like a need.
need
You know what I
to
mean?
want to
Like
learn. Yeah,
some artists really want to make, you know, and because I've met a lot of artists, especially in art school, that, had to really build those muscles to improve the skills, but they wanted to make so bad. And some of them are working artists now and are like really living it more than anyone else I know. So
that's cool.
that's a big part
You
of
got
it.
to
Yeah.
put the time.
Yeah. So did he ever do anything with his drawing? Does he still do
Nope.
it?
Mm-mm.
Oh, he
Nope.
should totally.
He went from doing that to football plays because he was a coach, still is. He's a coach and teacher. But I don't know. I don't think he's brought out his pen and paper in a long time. His kids are very creative and they're in poetry and spoken word and actors and stuff like that. But
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
no, he didn't do anything.
You should give it a try sometime. Go
He
to a
didn't
paint night
have
or
the
something.
desire to like that burning desire to keep learning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Any resources you want to mention that kind of helped you throughout your career?
You know, it's kind of more like a exercise, my favorite branding exercise. I kind
Okay.
of started to speak to it. So, like I said, if someone walked into a room and you're working on your style guide or your logo, and someone walked into the room and said, "But who are you? What do you do?" If you can't answer that immediately, clearly, and then everyone else that's involved in the decision making, if they can't answer it similarly, take a couple steps back because every branding exercise, I think, even if you have a style guide, even if you're an established brand, just to make sure you really have a deep understanding of it, I think you should answer that question. And it's not the mission statement, it's really just simple. And I think of a brand like who would be a good example? One of my favorite beers. Have you ever had Long Trail Ale? They're based out of Vermont. They're very
Okay.
Vermonty vibes. And when you look at their art, their logo, if you go into their brewery, if you see any of their can and bottle art, if I were to guess, the answer to who are you is, people who love beer and hiking and are passionate Vermonters, right? So it's not we just make beer, it really is all of these other things. Because the main brewery was started on the Long Trail. That's a very long trail in Vermont, basically. And it's a
Okay.
very rustic, sort of outdoorsy place. So, anyways, that's a good example of like, I feel like they could answer that in that sentence and say, that's who we are. Once you have that exercise down and you've answered, who are you? From there, I would pick 3 words that you would use to create the essence, the vibe of that answer. So, using Long Trail as an example, maybe that rustic, outdoorsy camping or some sort of vibe like that, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why I like to do those 2 things is because if you have like a big, very clear understanding of what you are and you can pinpoint it down that strongly, from there, that's when you can start to think about what colors make me think of that? What materials might I use to reflect that? So, when you look at Long Trail's style guide, I don't work with them, but I love them. And I think they have like a clear brand identity. They're red and green. Their icon or their logo is like a guy hiking and it's
Cool.
green and it's, like clear kind of rusticy font, Long Trail. And it feels very much like they did something like that when they were building that and they really answered those questions first. And when you have that little exercise under your belt, and then you really think about like what are the colors and materials that reflect that brand thought or identity, then everything else falls into place because you can put that in your style guide, right? Like your style guide should have your clear logo, then it should have how it's used as a one color because if you talk to any print person, something's going to come up at some point where it has to be one color. If it's laser engraved, right? If it's
Yep.
if you're a sponsor at an event and they're not going to spend full color to have all of the logos, right? Any of those things. So it should have all of that. But then, your style guide can have materials that are the vibe of the brand. And the reason why that's all important is because as you grow, you're going to have people making choices for your brands that might not be the head decision makers. And, if brands material that's important for continuity is something like wood, you might not want to be seeing plastic case racks in the store that reflect your brand, right? So I feel like doing pulse checks on your brand and that little exercise, I've always found helps me when I'm trying to
Yeah, I
connect
can
to the
totally
brand. It helps.
visualize what you're talking about after going through that exercise.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I feel like that's
Yeah,
a pretty solid tool,
yeah.
And I kind of do the same thing if I'm not given a style guide by a brand. I do a little bit of research, and that's how I will source for them because to be brand right is to be thinking about things like color and material.
Yeah,
It's important to reflect the whole story.
it is important. Branding in general is important and getting it right. And one author, Donald Miller, I don't know if you've heard of Building a Brand Story.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, because he doesn't so much get into all the it's more target marketing and your customers are your hero, not you. And but what I liked about him and what you're saying is how important the brand story is because he would hand out $5 bills to anybody who could say exactly the brand, you know, the sentence, the brand. What's our brand sentence? And $5, he's like, it's worth it because that is so important for all the stakeholders to be on the same page, like you were talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think that's cool.
And the other resource I would say, like to that point, is, invest the time and energy in a style guide. Even if you're a small emerging brand, if you can't afford to have a design team come on, look at hiring a freelance college kid that's going to art school. You know what I mean? They could use that time to
Yeah,
build a portfolio. It's going to
great
save you
idea.
money, but you can still get good work. It's a mutually beneficial thing, but it's a good thing to have at any time. You can always reapproach it. It's intense to do that
Yeah.
too, but and then the style guide itself is going to be your biggest resource, and every person that works for your brand should have seen a copy of it, even
Wow,
if they're in finance.
I've never heard of a style guide. So is this something that you can build in Canva?
Yeah, yeah.
Like your
So
brand
style
brand
guide actually
build, your colors and stuff like that? Sorry.
Yeah, so Canva actually does have some brand guide or style guide templates. So a style guide is just kind of like a lookbook of everything to do with your brand. So it will show your primary logo, any other additional icons that you might find acceptable for use in digital or print. So it's really just that's if it's not in that book, other visuals shouldn't be used that are outside of that book to represent your brand. It's kind of like
I like that.
it's like the landing page of it all. So it'll have your primary logo and then it will show things like misuse, things that it shouldn't do. Another thing great style guides would have will be spacing. Because I don't know if you've ever experienced, but sometimes you give your logo to something, maybe you're sponsoring or whatever, and you don't show how it to space it, and then they'll stack it with something right over it. But if you specifically call out to use our logo, you have to use it this way. It helps prevent some of those issues. And then things that you don't think of right away, like a lot of times when people are building out logos, they're maybe digital designers. So they're thinking it looks great on the screen, but what if I put it on a black t-shirt? It might
Right.
not look great. So you also want to have pages in your style guide for logo use where you show alternatives to your primary logo that have different color adaptations. So what it looks like on a light color, what it looks like on a dark color, one color, like I said. And then another big one that comes up that people don't have a lot in style guides is they won't have a vertical logo. And it's so important because, especially in beverage, you're going to need pens to distribute it on premise, right?
Yeah.
Straws,
Oh,
cocktail
that's true.
stirrers. So you'll
That's
need
true.
something that can fit, or sunglasses. And it's all those things you don't think of because you're not thinking of print yet. But at some point, you're going to be investing that marketing spend there. And then people are going to be kind of like on the fly figuring it out if they need to. And then you're going to stray away from what the original stakeholders and decision makers had in mind when they were building that brand. And that's when you lose that brand continuity. That's when you start to see stuff fall apart a little bit brand wise.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I never thought about that. I mean, I think if you are a Canva user, the only size you get to build a logo is a square. But there are other tools you can use to create it so it's not a square. But yeah, I mean, even my Thursdays logo couldn't fit on sunglasses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things you don't think about, especially for companies like, for example, Thursdays, I put it together in 10 days. I mean, that's not my style at all. So I wasn't thinking about anything. Just give me a name, give me a design, got a Fiverr, and it's one of those things where it's just like let's go.
Yeah.
I didn't have the time to like analyze or think about colors or branding or anything. It was just like, but hopefully people, creating lifestyle brands and creating, you don't just create a brand overnight. They have a lot of those resources in place to help them with that planning.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes it's an evolving thing because I've totally run into that a lot in different endeavors I've done in my life where it's like sometimes you just have to do it
Yep.
and
Just gotta go.
edit later, you know?
Yep.
But
Well, you
it's
evolve. Everybody evolves,
right.
right? You can evolve
Yeah, so it's
and
never too
grow.
late to try, rebrand, refresh, and sometimes it is just like a tweak or adding things that come up that you didn't think of before.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So, from where you are within the industry, what kind of pain points that you've experienced that, either you are going through, have been through, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, a big pain point is so I have a very project management state of mind, right? And the pillars of project management, there's three. You have your scope of your project, you have the budget for your project, and you have the timeline for your project. And in an ideal world, you follow through with exactly those three pillars all the way through. But a lot of times you evolve, things come up. All of a sudden, we've moved this event up a month and you need to um, kind of pivot to figure it out. I think the pain point comes a lot of times when the project changes, but I will struggle to figure out how to make the other pillars of that project bend, right? Because it's like if the timeline moves up and now we don't have 6 months and we have 2 months, now we can't go overseas and do something custom and we need to figure out what we have from stock. If that happens, A, budget's probably gonna bend because it might be a little bit more expensive to do something like that. Or, B, scope's definitely gonna bend because now we can't make slippers that are shaped like your wine bottle. I don't know, but now we have to just get slippers with your logo on them, as an example, just randomly coming to my head. And the pain point sort of comes when you know, your client is like, "No, but I want those slippers. I just need them in 6 weeks." And you're like, "I don't know if I can do that." So, for me, one thing is, I've been really intentional about building really strong relationships with my vendor and supplier partners so I can ask really big favors. So, sometimes that works. But another thing I've used to navigate tough points like that is just full transparency and really just breaking it down and explaining to someone if we can't do it that way, why we can't. And I just sort of try to leverage my creativity as best as possible to find different solutions. But it's kind of like a little bit of a you got to noodle through it.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a big, big pain point is just things change and then how do you pivot on them?
Yeah. Well, I know that, when you're doing demos and promotions and whatnot, you kind of have to have a plan B already in place because you just never know. I mean, now with the tariffs, I mean that whole world could change. You know, you might have to resource some of your, relationships in other places. So, I mean, it's definitely a global economy, and it's
Uh-huh.
definitely something that yeah, I'm sure you're paying attention to at all times like we are in our industry.
Yeah.
And, even your customers could be affected. So, it's a 25% is a big deal.
It's a huge deal. I will definitely say, I mean, one thing that's been pretty consistent in my career is I've always had to be very knowledgeable of tariffs.
Yep.
I literally worked in just sourcing for major retailers for a long time, and I had to like pull out a tariff book and figure out like what this material and this product type, what is the tariff code, you know? So these are numbers I've never heard of in my life. Yeah. So that's definitely future pain point for sure. A pain point now too is tariffs are a huge question mark, right? Because even I think one thing that people are kind of confused about, and I've been trying to educate them is, I've heard a lot of clients say, oh, well, we'll just pivot and we'll do something in America instead. But in the promo industry, when we domestically print, it's still a lot of times parts or the whole thing from overseas. They're manufactured in bulk. They sit in warehouses for suppliers here and they're pulled off shelf for your order and your logos put on it. But they're not making the product here, right?
Right.
Uh, so it's definitely going to have an impact on a lot of things. We metal displays, although I do have one domestic metal display guy, so I think I'll be calling him a lot more these days.
Well, I guess that's the point of all of this, right?
Yep.
Is that we start sourcing from people in our own country. So maybe that will be a good thing and we'll shift and create more jobs. You never know.
Never know. Yeah, it definitely a little bit of infrastructure building will be taking place for that to happen. But yeah, I mean, we figure it out, right? I mean, we
That's right. We ebb and flow.
it's
It's out
been
of our control. There's nothing
right.
we can do about it.
It's been a kind of why like, I graduated right after the recession was coming to a tail end, and so it's just been my whole career has just been figure it out.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, what about your outlook? You seem like a pretty positive person. So, what are you thinking about the outlook for the industry and how you guys can play a part?
Yeah, I think one outlook for sure specific to the tariff conversation is I think going to have to be really intentional and watch super closely material. I
Yep.
think things like, metal is a huge part of the point of sale display sort of entity for beverage brands. And I think, it depends on where costs go, but usually a lot of times people don't want to look at something like wood because it's too
Right.
expensive. But, maybe we do start seeing a change in materials that's consistent across the board. So I think we're going to see a lot of that, or even things like signs. Like, is the tin tacker going to be a wood sign, or are we going to see more corrugate? Depending on wherever the tariffs land, I think that's when we'll see some pivoting. And I think just relationship building will be super important throughout the supply chain and just leaning on each other to kind of figure it out and help each other out. I can see a lot of that happening from me and my clients, but also me and my suppliers servicing my clients. Maybe just being more creative with bang for your buck, right? So if you are marketing spend is important, you shouldn't walk away from it, but maybe being creative about how a marketing spend can go and how you can make it as impactful as possible. So being even more intentional, which I'm always about, I'm never the one that wants to just, oh, let's just get stress balls, nothing wrong with stress balls, but I think it's a positive when someone's really, really super focused on what this marketing spend will mean for consumer spend back to us, and how do we create real meaningful brand engagement. So I think those are going to be more thoughtful conversations over the next year for sure, with all the challenges presented. But then, and also, like, outside of all that, we're still evolving technologically. So I think we'll see, interactive elements of different promo and displays. One thing I've been super excited about is NFC technology. So that like tap technology. We have these pens here that have the NFC and you can like tap it to your phone and it brings you to any URL you want. I see that being really cool in the
Yeah.
beverage industry because you can have a revolving like cocktail page.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you're going to be spending the money on a pen or a koozie, how cool is it to actually have it add, more of an interaction with the consumer and your brand? And then you can also kind of track it too, like how many people are going to that URL. Was it worth it for that marketing spend? If you had like a good return on investment, it just data driven, I guess, would say I can
Yeah.
see being more important too.
Yeah, for sure. That
Yeah.
is my language. So
Yeah.
I'm always going to agree with that.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. I
Can't
mean,
really argue with it.
sometimes I think, especially I see it in the beverage industry, people can take, depending on the size of their brand, a bit of a throw stuff on a wall and see what sticks. But, there really is power to stepping back, looking at what you did and seeing if it actually made a difference dollar to dollar in your sales back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, Kaileen.
Thank you
I
so
do
much.
have, yeah, I do have one more question. You said that you started painting. Is there anything else that you like to do when you're not working that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really passionate about nonprofits. So I've been helping museums out lately. I've been helping one with a capital campaign to raise money to restore a historic home that they have a collection in. So I love all that stuff. I volunteer at an animal shelter locally, super passionate about animals, and I have a cat and a dog myself. And then outside of that, yeah, I just like being outside. That's why this room is freaking me out because I'm like, there's no sun, but it looks so
This
bright
fake
out.
light stinks. I need a window.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, so
Totally
that's
get
that's
it.
all that's going on with me.
All right, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna ask you 3 questions, kind of rapid fire.
All right.
I don't know what they're gonna be. Are
Okay.
you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
If you were a cocktail, which one would you be?
God. So the first thing that comes to my mind is an old fashioned because it's always the cocktail I get, but I don't think I'm an old fashioned.
Yeah, but old fashions are cool and hip right now.
Okay, then I'll go with an old fashioned because it's always my go-to order if I don't know what I'm gonna get.
It's been evolving too, and it's fun. I guess it's mine too. But you can use rum, you can use tequila, you can use all kinds of. You don't just have to use bourbon with it, which is kind of
I did
fun.
go to a place that had like a really funky old fashioned and they used spice rum and I was like, this is surprising but delicious. Yeah, so maybe I'm like a
Yeah,
unexpected old fashioned.
yeah. There's a little artistry in there.
Yeah.
There's a little artistry in every sip.
Love that.
What's your favorite color? What kind of green?
So specifically, I shouldn't even say green. There is a very, it's not even green. It's like that pale mint aqua-y color. Think
Okay,
of
like
KitchenAid mixers. They always have that like
okay.
minty
Is
sort of
that
green
kind
tint
of like
too.
the ocean color?
Kind of, yeah, a little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you. I like that color.
It's just
And
very like happy and uplifting.
it is happy. It is very, very happy, and it's calm, and it's pretty, and it's like I went right to the ocean with it, and that's always a happy place.
Yeah, exactly.
What about your favorite movie?
Favorite movie.
I stumped her.
Right
Everybody.
now, I feel like it's a cheesy one, but if I'm not, I feel like I always go back to Forrest Gump or
Forrest
Ace
Gump's
Ven-
good.
or either of the Ace Venturas because I can quote those movies line for line.
What's funny about that is that something reminded me of our conversation earlier about Pretty Woman.
That's so funny.
And I knew that whole movie line for line for line. And maybe it was a previous conversation that I had today, but I haven't seen that movie in so long. Like I used to be like, "Mom, I'm sick. I'm not going to school today." Okay. So I'd miss like the morning. I go lay on the couch and watch the movie.
I love that.
Silly.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's
it's
time to
just
rewatch it.
yeah, I guess maybe it is. It's been decades since I've since I've seen it.
I wonder if you still know all
But
the lines. You got to test it out.
Yeah, because you remember, I know we were talking about Hollywood, me being me being famous, and I go, yeah, Hollywood. You remember the opening line of that guy on Pretty
Yeah.
Woman where he's talking about being in Hollywood? What
Yeah.
does he say? Do you remember what he says? Everybody wants to be in Hollywood, or
Something like that. Yeah, like on the
everybody
street, right?
belongs in Hollywood, something like that.
That's so funny.
Such a great line that I can't remember,
Yeah.
but it has been a minute.
Yeah, it's time. Time to revisit.
Yeah. Well, this has been delightful, Kylie. I'm glad you reached out and we connected, and I'm glad to get you on. I think you have a really unique perspective, especially when it comes to thinking outside the box. My guess would be that most companies, unless you're really big and at that point they're pretty well established or have pretty good idea of those questions you were mentioning. But I would imagine that these smaller to mid-sized companies can't answer a lot of the questions that you kind of went through as you're talking through branding. I've never been through that exercise before. And it seems really logical and practical,
Mhm.
but it's not something that just comes to people to go, yeah, this is something I should be doing. And so I'm sure a lot of your customers are really thankful for you to kind of challenge them back and ask those questions,
Yeah,
because
for
they
sure.
they may not know
Yeah.
all of them, you know? And so I think probably working with you with your expertise on it kind of gives them even more clarity of their brand and their customers.
Yeah, and that's always super exciting to do, right? So
Yeah.
that's
That's
what I love. It's the
that's
visual
your
language.
jams.
It's my jam. Yeah.
Visual language. I love it. That's awesome. It's so important these days, especially, I know you're on the point of sale side, but with all these, Gen Zs, even the Xers being brought up with all the flashy social media things, you got to grab attention visually and quickly.
Hmm.
And what does that look like, right? And so you've really got that down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what visual language is all about. They say when you're in a trade show, they say it takes someone 15 to 30 seconds to decide if they want to go in your booth or not. And I think the same thing's happening at the point of sale level, right? So, and they
100%.
don't want to hear you talk, right? Because they flip on to the next video in 15 seconds. So, not a lot of words. It's just what is the
Yes.
visuals? And are they
Yes.
authentic to who you really are, right?
Yep. Authenticity is something that certainly, I think with AI, the content has gotten so good and is everywhere. This is my guess, because I'm really upset with LinkedIn because they've changed something, and I can't get traction anywhere doing anything with my videos, with my newsletters. I was like, okay, I'm going to pick LinkedIn to put my blog and write articles. Well, that's done nothing for me. And it's very frustrating. And then I see all these people with these giant emails about authenticity on wherever you want to go with it, you know? 400 likes.
I know. And they're in so long. And I'm like, are those people really reading this?
No, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, maybe I am using AI, but what I'm saying is exactly what this video is about, or this article, and this it's still really good content, and it's very frustrating. And so I finally launched on TikTok, and I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Nice. Congrats.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, kind of that AI thing. Personal belief, I could be totally off as far as like trend forecasting. I think across the board, eventually everything's so perfect, right? You can have computer generated art, you can have computer generated
Oh,
text,
which is terrible.
speech to text, you
AI.
even the way we look, all, totally have a different face than the one you were born with. And it looks great and no one can tell. But I think that people are going to get to a point where if everyone has the same face and everyone has the same text and everyone has the same visuals, people are going to start to really like maybe stuff that doesn't look so perfect, and I can
Yep.
foresee that being a contrarian
Fair.
trend to all of this.
And maybe that's what LinkedIn's trying to do, but honestly, I was told that it's a formula that somebody paid $7,000 to learn how to write. It's an
Crazy.
exact formula about, a problem. It's probably like problem, you can't trust people. You got to be careful of who just silly things like that. And it's just like, that doesn't seem authentic to me at all. Some of it.
Yeah. A lot of stuff, especially on LinkedIn, feels very computer generated. And that's why I feel like, I don't know. Sometimes I make a spelling error in an email or a social media post or something, and then I don't sweat it because I'm like, I don't know. First of all, there's spelling errors in New York Times, and that's how you know that someone actually wrote it,
Wrote it
right?
and somebody actually read it.
Yeah. When you look at a painting and you see the underdrawing, that's how you know someone really painted it. When you listen, my favorite kind of music when you listen to like that, like really drilled down indie stuff is when you can hear someone's fingers like sliding on the guitar, or you can hear the breath they take before they sing. All of those things show the
The human
humanity.
element.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think that'll be eventually a big trend, is like showing the humanity in social media and art forms, because I think people eventually are going to be like, ugh,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
I can see that. And it's only been, what, 2 years or
yeah,
3 years? I think we're in our third year.
yeah,
Yeah. Because
but it is getting
AI
weird.
came out in December, right before I started the podcast. And I didn't start using it for the podcast until like December, halfway through December. So I don't know.
I see.
What?
Sorry, I just saw your I always forget his name, the little Yoda. There he is. He's so cute. Sorry, got
So,
distracted
so
for a
I
moment.
move him around, and I'm gonna make little shorts and play a game. Where's Grogu?
It's so cute. I just noticed him. I don't know how I just noticed him, but he's so
Yeah.
adorable.
I've had him there all day and no one said a word. I
He
think it's kind of
blends.
busy.
He
Yeah, it's kind
blends
of busy
really
back
well
there.
there. Yeah, he's somehow
Yeah.
camouflaged, even though he's not the
Yeah.
same color. It's very natural.
It's so fun. Anyway, it's been so much fun meeting you. I wish you all the best. I'm so happy and excited for you that you're back home in a place where, you want to be around family. You're really kicking butt with this branding piece. You really got a focus on how to get there and get what customers really want. So, congratulations. I really enjoyed listening to your career. I love that you're an artist and design jewelry and all the things. It's so cool.
Thank you
I
so
don't
much.
meet very many people like that in the alcohol industry. So, it's really unique and, um, a good story to tell.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I really love the podcast. I'm so happy to be here.
Good. Yay. Well, you'll help me promote it
Yes. Yes, I
to
will.
your people. Okay. Good. I could
Let's
use
get
your
out
help.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty. Well, I'll let you get to it, but thank you again.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Produced by Fedora J Productions. Tune in next Thursday and have a great week.